Welcome to my Business Foundation series. Here I choose one business concept and explain it to you. Today I'm going to be breaking down product life cycles. When a product first enters the market, it goes through a life cycle that takes it from being new and functional to being retired from circulation. All products progress through the stages of creation to launch, launch to maturity, maturity to decline, and then it heads to an eventual retirement from a company's product line. This is a continuous universal cycle that is applicable to any products we sell and our customers buy. Whilst you may not think this is particularly groundbreaking, there is a value to knowing about this. It can help you evaluate your business operations in a more proactive way, helping you to get ahead of market changes. The life cycle is a theoretical concept that can be applied to either a product model or even a product group or brand. If I'm honest, I also apply it to business models too. I find this graph is applicable to anything that has a journey from growth to end. Whichever way you apply it to your business and its product lines, using the product lifecycle model can help you to forecast sales trends, target and position your product in the market carefully, manage a portfolio of products, and finally help you to select the best products to focus your investment and effort into. Do you remember the Apple's iPod range? Let's look at its sales figures between its launch in 2003 to its retirement after 2014. It's easy to see the product lifecycle in motion here. From the introduction to market, there's a clear growth phase moving to when the sales of the units jumped from 4.4 million units in 2004 to 22.49 million units in the very next year, 2005, and then jumping up to 39.41 million units in 2006. From 2007 to 2010, you have the maturity phase of the product line with a consistent 50 million units being sold. Then from 2010 to 2014, you can see the decline in sales, all the way down to 40 million units. Now we know that the product lifecycle of the iPod was perhaps cut short by Apple's own iPhone launch back in 2007. But the truth of the matter is, when Apple most likely reached the maturity point of the iPod sales around the 50 million unit mark in 2007 to 2010, there was a strategic decision by Apple to pour more investment and the brand might behind the iPhone product, which was a feasible replacement of the iPod without Apple losing its market share in the music tech industry. Well, Apple's strategy shift paid off with their unit sales reaching over 200 million by 2015, the point the iPod Classic had been fully retired. This is the power of knowing where you place on the product lifecycle graph. Companies use PLC analysis, the process of examining a product's lifecycle, to establish strategies for extending the life of their products, changing them to meet market demand, or adapting to new technology. How about we go through the different life cycle stages so you can assess where your products or your business places itself? First, before the product even makes it on the product lifecycle graph, it goes through the development phase of the product lifecycle. Developing a new product is a complicated process since it's often done with limited to no market feedback. This stage is naturally integrated into the startup process. However, there are times when people make their product before they can even conceive how it can be sold and to whom. Either way, the successful development of your product signals the start of your product's lifecycle. During this stage of marketing, you want to increase brand awareness and promote yourself as a forward-thinking company. In order to do that, you can start developing buzz about your product by getting the endorsements of well-known personalities in the field, which is usually the first step in marketing. You can also share early and positive customer feedback or testimonials. Next, we have the introduction phase of the product lifecycle. This is where the product is released to the market. For large businesses, this phase is all about a nationwide, sometimes global, TV, internet, radio, and print advertisement campaign. I mean, consider when Coke launched a new flavor. Suddenly, you see it everywhere. For a smaller business with a smaller budget, the introduction to market is likely to be slower paced or organic, and is often initially the time these businesses test their marketing techniques or even their product's effectiveness. It's no surprise that this stage of the product lifecycle necessitates the company's greatest marketing investment. In fact, even if sales have already begun, it is not uncommon to continually fail to reach ROI of the total marketing spend at this point. If you want to set yourself up to succeed, it's important to define the target demographic and the persona that represents the ideal consumer profile for your product. This exercise allows you to get the most out of your marketing dollars by using the correct platforms to deliver the best message to the right people. Then begin building your sales funnel and the customer database even before you launch. I would do this by telling people what's coming and to sign up to be alerted when you're live. This early sign up allows you to see who's interested and why. I would also limit production volume so that less cash flow is tied up in inventory, and if you need to make a quick change to the product after you get feedback from early buyers. At this phase, your risk is limited. Next, we have the growth phase of the product lifecycle. The growth stage is the third step in the product lifecycle, if everything goes well with the product development and the launch to market stages, that is. The major characteristics of this stage are noticeably increasing sales and continued investment of marketing budgets. It's unfortunate, but many businesses fail at this point. They never really find a growth momentum and their products' revenues decrease, despite never having reached maturity. What happens is that when you come to market and introduce your product at the same time as your customers are sitting up and taking note of you, so are your competitors. If your product design is easily imitable or not differentiated from the competitor, it is unfortunately at risk of being crowded out by other businesses doing what you do. If, on the other hand, your product has the steam to race ahead of your competitors who are behind the curve, you have the chance to capture the market. So whether it's a differentiated product design, low cost points, or even just a super aggressive marketing campaign, choose a strategy that will best catapult you into this moment and beyond. From the growth phase, we move to the maturity phase of the product lifecycle. Maturity is the peak, the highest point of the product lifecycle. Since a product has already established itself in the market, the cost of developing and selling the existing product will decrease. The beginnings of market saturation can be seen as the product lifecycle reaches its mature stage. Many consumers will have purchased the product by this time, and competitors will have established themselves, making branding, price, and product uniqueness even more important to maintaining market share. At this stage, it's fair to say that the product's full potential is recognized and sales either plateau or begin to fall off. It is no longer possible to grow once the summit has been reached. This is sometimes due to the fact that the market has reached capacity or your product is failing to meet the needs of those who are yet to buy it. Without a deliberate change in the product, it is unlikely these non-believers will ever sign up to buy your wares. Saying that, the company can take steps to try to stay in this place as long as the market will allow it and to avoid major setbacks. Look at Coca-Cola, for instance. It does not abandon the media despite the fact that it doesn't rely on marketing. The company recognizes that brands do not last forever, since they are subject to market instabilities and audience behavior shifts. Consider what would happen if a competitor created a new soft drink and customers discovered that they needed it for their weekend family lunches. Coca-Cola would lose market share, and in such a case, its position as the leading brand. So, what does Coca-Cola do? It does as much as it can to stay on the top of our minds, and has even made a permanent home in our minds with their Christmas campaigns and loud and proud vending machine artwork. Finally, we have the decline phase of the product lifecycle. Although most companies strive to keep their products in the mature stage for as long as is feasible, practically every product will eventually come down from its pedestal. In the decline stage, product sales drop and consumer behavior shifts as demands for the product declines. The company's product continues to lose market share, and revenues are declining as a result of increased competition. When a business is in decline, marketing is frequently minimal or targeted at existing consumers, and prices are sometimes decreased to move the last of the inventory. Think about it. Even Coca-Cola will be phased out at some point. Perhaps not the business, but the primary product. It could take 100, 200, or even 1,000 years for this to happen. It's difficult to know what and when it will happen. Nonetheless, every product reaches the end of its life cycle. When this occurs, the corporation must face the uncomfortable truth shown by its performance indicators and create a substitute product. If everything points to the product being phased out, spending a lot of money on marketing to try to reverse the situation is frankly too risky. Of course, there's a possibility that it could work, but what if it doesn't? The company as a whole, and not just the product, may be endangered. Understanding the life cycle of a product allows businesses to determine whether their products are meeting the needs of their target market, and as a result, when they may need to shift their emphasis or develop something new. Knowing when a product is on its way out will help your organization to avoid being overly reliant on a fading market. A product lifecycle strategy allows you to revive an existing product, develop a new replacement product, or shift to stay ahead of the competition. While all products have a life cycle, many of the most successful ones can stay in the mature stage for many years before falling to the inevitable decline. I hope you finally have the idea of how the product life cycle works and how you will incorporate it into your business. I have lots more coming up in the Business Foundation series over the next few months. I do feel that there is a value to sometimes going back to the basics, especially when the day-to-day drama of running our businesses has the tendency to make it impossible to remember the theory and best practices out there to help us build better businesses. Let me know if there's anything else that you would like me to cover. Until the next one, you got this. Hi, my name's Priyanka. I hope you enjoyed that video. I know I enjoyed making it. Would you be a darling and subscribe? Thank you.